So lesson one, never apologize. If you say it, own it, especially if you write it, right? I think. What do you think about the idea? You heard what was considered to be the controversial things. For people who do not watch Game of Thrones, this is kind of a pretty strong reference to what happened to Queen Cersei when she has to walk down and people chant shame, shame. And that's probably the most iconic example of something like this happening recently. Cancel or not to cancel, what's going to happen with Jeremy Clarkson? And what does it say about Meghan Markle that she basically has claimed that she is powerless, but now is trying to take down this incredibly powerful, popular British personality over his criticism of her? I want to talk about this Jeremy Clarkson thing because he wrote a column. So if you don't know Jeremy Clarkson, he is how would you describe him? Like a British comedian who does like a travel
show where he drives around in fancy cars and says things that are witty in his British accent.
That's a good way of describing it. I mean, he would be kind of a, would you say he's a version of, an older version, but kind of a version of, who's the guy who does all the, that's British, that does the show that's always offending people, whose name is escaping me right now. He did the Golden Globes a few years ago, was absolutely
from The
hysterical.
Office?
Yeah, the original Office.
Yeah,
the British version.
The guy
and now
I
put you up.
Ricky Gervais.
Yes. All right. Kind of like a Ricky Gervais, if you don't know this guy. So he wrote a column.
You have never watched Top Gear, the show?
I've never watched it.
Oh, it was like a global phenomenon for a while. I saw it because my older brother loves cars. Yes. I view cars as a conveyance, so I just want them to be comfortable and quiet. Like, I don't care. My older brother, if you told him that he could get behind an F1 car and go 200 miles an hour, it would be like Christmas for him. So he introduced me to Top Gear. But Clay, I'll bring it up just because they started making like Top Gear for different countries. There was one in the U.S. It became a huge show. That's how he's known.
That's like, I don't know what percentage of our audience would know Jeremy Clarkson, which is why I'm trying to like kind of put a perspective of who he is. I think a lot of you would recognize him. I don't know how many of you would have watched him, but he's on these super popular shows, one that you just mentioned, and he's got a show on Amazon Prime, and they are preparing, it appears, to cancel him because he wrote an article about, he's British, how much Meghan Markle drove him crazy, and here are some quotes from it. He said that everyone his age thinks the same about Meghan Markle, and they want to see her publicly shamed. Here's what he said in his column. I hate her. Not like I hate Nicola Sturgeon or Rose West. I hate her on a cellular level. By the way, I don't know who either of those people are, Nicola Sturgeon or Rose West. At night, this is a quote from his column, I'm unable to sleep as I lie there, grinding my teeth and dreaming of the day when she is made to parade naked through the streets of every town in Britain while the crowds chant shame and throw lumps of excrement at her. This was an opinion piece in The Sun. It's most complaints ever levied, they say, from an opinion column run in The Sun. He then apologized. He said, I really am sorry, all the way from the balls of my feet to the follicles in my head. This is me putting my hands up. Meghan Markle's spokesperson says, a public apology's been issued. What remains to be addressed is his long-standing pattern of writing articles that spread hate rhetoric, dangerous conspiracy theories, and misogyny. Unless each of his other pieces were also written in a hurry, it's clear this isn't an isolated incident. They're basically trying to get him canceled now over this. And it's turned into a huge story. Okay, so lesson one, never apologize. If you say it, own it, especially if you write it, right? I think. What do you think about the idea? You heard what was considered to be the controversial things. For people who do not watch Game of Thrones, this is kind of a pretty strong reference to what happened to Queen Cersei when she has to walk down and people chant shame, shame. And that's probably the most iconic example of something like this happening recently. Cancel or not to cancel, what's going to happen with Jeremy Clarkson? And what does it say about Meghan Markle that she basically has claimed that she is powerless, but now is trying to take down this incredibly powerful, popular British personality over his criticism of her?
See, I can't be somebody that's viewed in any way as objective on these matters, because not only do I think that Meghan Markle, to the degree that I am forced to read about her, by the way, because even if I don't want to read about Meghan Markle, there will be headlines in whatever news site I am trying to read the news of the day. I'm trying to get to things that matter. And there's, the latest, and I want to beg everybody, not just in the UK, but around the world, please stop clicking on these articles. It is a waste of your brain space. It is a waste of your time. The royal family in the UK, just going to say it, waste of time. There have been some people emailing, by the way, that if I only understood the history of monarchy in the UK more, I've seen a few of those. Wrong. The monarchy is preposterous. People being born into any role that an entire country is supposed to practically worship and make them head of state and head of a church is an anachronism and an absurdity. The fact that people have this Disneyland view of, like princes and princesses and kings and queens is ridiculous. We fought a war so we never have to listen to these people again, and yet here we are still talking about it. So I just get fired up over it. Should not be.
Prince Harry's book is the fastest selling nonfiction book, I believe, in the history of his publisher.
That's
and
disgusting.
A ton of those people are buying it here in the United States.
Oh,
I saw the data and I was like, maybe this thing is going to bomb. I think they sold 2 million copies. They can't even keep it in stock anywhere. I saw where people, there's like 400 people signed up to get the library book. Have you seen like the list? I was reading the other day in some of the American cities of how many people, they're not buying the book, but they're going to wait 8 years to read it, evidently, in the library.
My faith in humanity here. This is really sad that people care so much. I don't understand why they care at all. These are trust fund babies who have nothing to teach any of you. It is a total, the royal family is a total waste of anyone's time, but particularly Americans. I don't know why anyone, it's just all fantasy land. It's all the Disneylandification of the royals and the whole thing. It's absurd. Look, The Crown is a moderately entertaining show. It's incredibly well made. I will give it that. But that's pure entertainment, right? I'm not sitting there thinking that this really matters. People reading about this as news stories, what was the Duchess of Essex or something? What's she called? It's Sussex, Essex, one of those, whatever. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
I don't even know who the Duchess is. But so Jeremy Clarkson here.
Wait, no. What do they call Meghan Markle? What's her title? Doesn't she? I
don't think she has a title. They stripped all the titles,
right?
I think she was the Duchess of Sussex.
There we go. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, she was the Duchess
but I think
of Sussex.
again. I know. Wait, I'm obsessed. They stripped all the titles. They don't have that anymore. But Jeremy Clarkson, who is a super famous guy, if he just comes out and says, you're getting a lot of criticism for your column where admittedly you said you want her to have to walk naked while getting, excrement thrown at her. What do you have to say? If he just said, yeah, I hate her and I stick by my perspective on it, isn't he way better off than when he comes out and says, I apologize from the tips of my toes to the
I would say this too. I mean, what he said, I think Meghan Markle is horrible from, I don't know her, but everything about her that I see in public and what she says. But what he said was, it was there was a line and it was over the line. It was gross. I mean, I don't think he had to say it that way. That's just my opinion though.
Yeah.
Do I think that he should be, kicked
stripped
out
of his television
public
shows,
life and stripped of his show and everything? No. Look, we all know that there is an additional layer of sensitivity with regard to anything having to do with Meghan Markle. So that means, because if this was a different royal, the British have a long history actually of, saying, especially the tabloid newspapers, some pretty rough stuff about their own monarchy. But with Meghan Markle, it's special.
Well, I think if he had just made that, hey, I want her to have a Queen Cersei style walk of shame in Game of Thrones.
He could have said it in a way that would be totally, what he said was gross. I mean, he didn't have to go to that point, but he was obviously trying to get a rise out of people.
But so why not just say, yeah, I meant it. I still hate her.
Well, I would, if I were him, I'd say, look, like I mean it in the sense that I agree with the sentiment, but I could have worded it a little differently. But to your point, Clay, the moment you start to walk back at all with any of this stuff, then the piranhas just come after you, right? Then it's just blood in the water.
The people who defend you will abandon you the moment you apologize, and then you're just left out there floundering on your own. When it's a written column, I think you just own it and say, look, maybe I was more aggressive than I should have been because I hate her so deeply, but I stand by every word.
Why?
I mean, that's what I would say if I were him. If you wrote it, stick by it.
What is interesting about, and I'm not, this is now on Prince Harry, what is interesting about a trust fund baby, second-tier monarchy in waiting who writes a book? I don't understand why people care about this so much.
That's such an interesting question. I think, and I'll read this, I'll give you my answer when we come back, but I've thought about that quite a lot, because how do you sell 2 million copies? It's one thing for people to read things for free, right? Like, oh, this is in front of me, I'm going to pick it up and look at it in the newspaper line or whatever. But to spend $25, that's, hundreds of millions of dollars that people are going to give of their own money to read this Prince Harry story. Why are they doing that?
Can I just tell you the good news, I think, real quick? I think there's good news from this. I think he's going to bring about I think this whole thing is going to collapse within the next 2 decades. I think people are going to realize this is so stupid that it's now, they're going to be like the monarchs of Denmark and Greece or whatever. No one cares. Prince Harry's book Spare is the fastest-selling nonfiction book since UK records began. This is the fastest-selling nonfiction book in the history, apparently, of the United Kingdom, I am seeing here. Clay, you and I sit across the table on this one. We agree on a lot of things. This one, I don't see it. Why does anyone care?
I think that so many people are invested in Prince Harry's story because of Princess Diana. This is my theory on why people are so obsessed with this. I would love to see the demo on the people who are buying this book, but I think it's overwhelmingly women, and I think it is overwhelmingly women who loved Princess Diana, and they have felt invested in Harry's life ever since they saw him as this sad, bereaved, broken 12-year-old boy walking behind her hearse back in 1997. So that was one of the most watched television events ever, in the same way that everybody cared about JFK Jr. and his sister, but JFK Jr. in particular, because they saw him walk out and salute his dad's casket back in the 1960s. I think people have felt invested in his childhood and his young adulthood ever since then, and that is the impetus behind why so many are buying this book. You buy it? I think that's my theory.
I mean, I'm not buying it, but I know what you're saying.
I mean, that's my theory on why this thing is selling like hotcakes.
I think your theory is correct. I'm just not going to add any. It's a fascinating thing.
You're so disgusted by this.
Totally disgusted by it. It's a fascinating thing to renounce your title so you can have a private life where you're going to try to be as famous and rich as possible based on your title. I'm sorry. I think it's a little bit absurd, but, that's me. I'm a grumpy old man, and I tell people to get off my lawn.